It's working. Technology worked for us for once.
On the plus side, well, on the funny side, I think there is a delay.
Oh, welcome.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice. Oh, that's right. We've never actually met, have we?
No, I mean, we probably crossed the path at conferences in the past, but it's the kind of thing that, yeah.
Yeah. But that's all right. Because we know each other online and
yeah.
I mean, it's the number of people who I mean, not so much these days, but certainly in the early to mid 2000s and maybe to like 2015 or so, the number of people who I knew for years online, and then I would meet them in person and feel like, oh, but I know you.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common experience. Yeah. So yeah.
Where are you at right now?
So
don't give me your address. I don't mean it like that.
Yeah, I was about to say
like what
we sense. So company wise,
I'm on the second floor. And
I work at Xero, and physically London.
Okay. All right. So it's what 5 p.m. for you?
Yeah.
Or 6 p.m.
5.
Okay. Yeah, we just did the time change here, and I forget
the adjustment. Yeah.
So I'm coming to you live from war-ravaged Portland, Oregon.
Yes, I know it's horrible. All these inflatable people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some terrible shit happening, but it's yeah. Anyway, well, good. I'm glad. I haven't been to London in a very long time, and I hope to get back at some point. But traveling these days is not enjoyable.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. All right, so you're at Xero.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, let me ask this in the most aggrandizing way possible.
Yes.
How are you making the lives of Xero users better on a daily basis? What great strides are you making?
That is the kind of like, honestly, like Xero is a large organization. So I live with the usual gap that happens in large organization between doing something and seeing the outcome. But yeah, generally speaking, my current focus is, first of all, UK. So I help build products in the UK for the UK market specifically. I also help, of course, more globally. And I'm also focusing primarily on the tax portfolio, which, I know when I say this, people are usually get excited. So, but
yeah, I'm trying to remain calm myself. But
it's the kind of things that someone has to do it, right? And the nice things about Xero is that I like say that we try to remove the boring parts from running a business, right? So all the parts about invoicing and bookkeeping and keeping everything on track and doing taxes. So all these things that people are not starting a business to do these things. So we try to simplify that and to make that as simple as possible according to the legal parameters we need to help follow. So it is pretty, like, the impact wise, it is pretty cool. Like the day-to-day, it has distance because, again, large organization.
Yeah. No, I mean, the impact, like, most people aren't billionaires, so most people have to pay taxes. Wait, was that a dig at billionaires? Sorry, billionaires.
Yeah, no, I think they can
I know they're pretty thin-skinned, so that they can't take it, actually. But yeah, so you said something about, like, the UK. Let's be nerdy for a minute. Like, beyond putting a U in a word that doesn't need a U, what makes the UK very specific? Like, is it just because of the focus on the taxes and how it's very
So
specific to that market?
there are
Or
definitely two factors. One is, which is the most pragmatic, is that when you start talking about legislation, it is country specific. So anything that touches that needs to be country specific. So taxes, of course, but payroll, which is the other big part, again, country specific. We have a whole part about integrating with banks, country specific, right? So, and that's the kind of the boring answer, right? In practice, it's also true that because each country has its different nature, the kind of people, the kind of businesses they run, there are also specificities on the kind of businesses they run here, right? So, creating a product for a country that, like the UK, that tend to have a lot of small businesses. And I'm not saying other countries don't have, to be clear, but it's the kind of attitude that a lot of people have. And even more, they have the attitude where they want to have, on one side, if they're small enough, they want to be able to run everything on their own, right? So they don't want to hire an accountant to do that. They don't want to, engage with other people. So if they can, and their software allows them to do that, they're probably leaning toward that side of things. And similarly, if they engage with an accountant, they tend to be more personal, right? They not in the sense, of course, that they live with them and engage with them weekly, but that they're basically getting someone that is not, an abstract entity or a company. They want someone that can just, hey, I want to talk about this, and they reply and so on. A human they can interact with. And so these two factors means that the way we tend to design the software, the way we tend to tailor for this market, tend to follow these things, right? So if we can, let's make it happen. But at the same time, if they get someone else, we try to make that more personal.
do you find, like, with the work you do, how much research are you doing?
Oh yeah, actually Xero is really good at that. Like, when I joined Xero, that was one of the delightful things about it, is that there is a good research team that is fairly well sized. I mean, everyone of course complain about we should have more designers, should have more researcher, but yeah, it's a good size in comparison, right? And so we tend to run research, like even sometimes like fairly deep and elaborate and well structured research to answer key questions on how things should happen. If anything, I would say that we do maybe a little too much, which is a very strange thing to be able to say. In the sense that sometimes like just that doesn't need to cross check with 12 users. Just just release it. It's fine. You know, but
Where does that drive for, I'll put in air quotes, too much research come from?
I think it's basically grounded. So first of all, I don't know the inception of Xero, so this is a little bit me speculating. But I think on one side is that Xero was born in New Zealand, and from what I came to understand, New Zealand culture and Australian cultures, they tend to be more of, in a sense, group players, right? So they tend to involve people. They tend to make sure, hey, do we all agree that this is a good decision? Which has pros and cons, right? But that also, I feel it could have driven a more, hey, why don't we check with the users that we're going to build with, right? More than other organizations. And on the other side, I think that it's due to working with compliance. So with things that tend to have longer cycles to be built, longer cycles to, release something. And so mistakes are way more costly, right? So if you make a mistake and it took you 12 months to build and release it,
right,
maybe not the right thing. So yeah, that really helps to make sure that we're building the right thing and in the right way.
Right. So it's I interpret that as maybe it's about risk reduction.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said that, and I was reminded of a project I did a few years ago where they wanted to test everything, and different situation, right? It was ecom related, and I was like, I'm not saying shopping cart flows can't be optimized at some point, but I feel like we've solved online buying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we need to test this. And they were like, no, we need to test it. We got to test everything because it says so in our KPIs. It's just like, but to your point, there are contexts within which testing to be as sure as possible,
Mm-hmm.
because we know testing in, we'll say, staging and testing in production,
Mm-hmm.
two wildly different things. But yeah, okay, so that makes sense. Yeah, so too much research, but also maybe not enough. Is the bulk, and this is a bad research question because it's a closed question, is the bulk of the research done more on the evaluative side or the generative side, or what kind of balance is it?
That's I don't have, frankly, a wide enough view to be able to say. Yeah, I don't think that there is a clear cut answer, because if I look at my area, it really depends on the project. So we're not really. And if I look more broadly, I'm not sure, because the broad view is not something I can tell. I would personally possibly push more for generative, but it's trickier to run. So, and we still do enough of it, so it's pretty good.
Right. Well, I mean, here's my pitch though: is maybe it is very important that, given the proliferation of pubs in the UK, and that there are a lot of them are small businesses, doing some generative research, traveling around while you're there, sampling wares. I'm looking out for you, for the company. I mean, I'm trying to help you, Xero. Come on. No, maybe not. I mean, maybe actually, but
You should have checked it first if that's something I would enjoy.
well, right, but it doesn't have to be
I'm
pubs.
sure.
It could be just insert your, yeah. What would it be? What would it be?
Oh, frankly,
If you had your druthers?
it would be bookshops, maybe. I don't know.
Bookshops? Yeah,
There are a lot
go.
of things that are actually like board game places that are actually, I don't know how much they're rising, but it feels they're getting more and more in London, at least. So that's also a good one.
Oh, places that are even like specializing in the board game stuff.
Yeah. You go there, you have a drink, you play a board game,
oh, that's great.
kind of thing. Yeah. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Screw the UX stuff. Let's talk board games.
Sure.
What's there's no script here. What board game? What's your go-to?
I mean, I have different answers, but I would say that probably the one I tend to introduce most people to is Munchkin, because it's a card game. You can have very quick game playing. They work really well in 2 players. They work great in groups of people, and they also have multiple themes. So if you like D&D, you get the classic one. If you like space, you get the space one, and they're all pretty good. And on top of that is a game I like because, and this is always something I say about the game, that the game has in the rules that you can cheat. But as long as you stop the moment doing that specific cheat, the moment you get caught. And then the game continues. And I think it's brilliant because it adds a lot of depth actually to the game in a very surprising ways.
Yeah, it seems like those game designers understood how humans function.
Yeah.
And that may or may not align with how you view the world.
Yeah, but
trying to understand how people function and get things done. And
yeah, but it's also it's funny because it resolves easily a lot of, you try to cheat, or even just you forgot that maybe you were playing certain cards in a certain way and that made you cheat, kind of thing, and it just resolves this. And it's okay, yeah, you were allowed, just keep going. You don't need to argue because, so just have fun, keep going. And that is the great thing about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. That you said cheat initially, and I was thinking intent, but then there's also misunderstanding or misremembering rules, and that made me think of what year is it now? Okay, so we're in the 5.5 year of a D&D campaign, and for probably the first 4 years I was playing part of my character completely incorrectly, not through intention, but because this is the first time I've played. So it's on D&D is on the 5th edition ish. The last time I played it was on 2nd edition, and things have changed since then. And the way I was playing was a combination of 2E rules and what I later figured out were sort of a homebrew aspect. And then someone called me on it. Not called me on it, but, noticed.
Yep.
And I said, well, what do you mean? And we kind of looked back over the campaign and like, oh, we probably would have died more often if I had been playing. Yeah. So now we're getting close to dying more often. And
yeah, but see, you're still surviving, so it's fine.
Yeah. It's all right. I think with that rule in Munchkin of that you can cheat until you get caught or until it is noticed. Because what's the phrase? Oh yeah, I have ADHD, and so of course I have all these projects. And I've got this list of projects, and on the project list are 2 games. One's a board game, and one's a casual video game. And I think that that's a really good reminder that it's not just, the way. Do you play video games at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you played Baldur's Gate 3?
Not yet, because time.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It requires a lot of time. But it like similar games allows for lots of different choices, and the developers have backups upon backups for if you accidentally kill this character, then they'll insert, like, they think about that stuff. And I think also, instead of just thinking about that stuff, like building in, if you're really doing things in allowing for people to do things incorrectly.
Yeah.
I think is really the core and it's a good lesson for game mechanics, and it's a good lesson for software design. And there seems to be, I'm trying to bring it back to UX stuff.
Good point.
We seem to always be, how do I want to say this? We're so driven to create a space where people do things a certain way. And that's the way the things get done. And I think in spaces that are highly regulated, like banking or taxes and stuff, that there's an aspect of that that's very appropriate. But I also think that because of that focus, we tend to not build in the forgiveness to these systems as much. I don't know always what that would look like, but I don't think it's something that comes up in discussions about what the software or the service or whatever should be.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it shouldn't, maybe it should, but
I mean,
is there an aspect of that in what you're working on now that comes up at all?
I think that takes a lot of different shapes and forms, right? In the sense that as a design principle, like for the kind of stuff that I focus mostly these days, it's because it's regulated, so it's mostly a matter of, design interfaces that are not punitive for mistakes, right? So can we avoid that even the person can type in the wrong number, right? That kind of things. And sometimes I feel this is something that is not seen, especially from very more senior designers, in the sense that it's like, oh yeah, of course it should work in a certain way, right? But it's not that obvious, especially if you compare to benchmarking larger and more software. There are still software these days that you type in the wrong number and it pop-ups a model that you need to press a button and to go back to it and reselect it manually instead of just, hey, if you try to type it doesn't, right? And this to me is an expression of that principle. Or simply, for example, the idea that it's funny because this is an idea that I read from the first time from Raskin, one of the earliest books he authored, when he was like, undo should be a foundation of everything, right? The ability to undo. And that's a statement with me since, because undo as a foundation, first of all, means a certain kind of data structures, but also interfaces that you can do whatever, and you can always backtrack to what to another state.
Yeah.
And that's a very forgiving interface if you're able to do that. Of course, cannot apply to everything. Some things, if you're submitting, you're submitting, right? If you did a payment, you did a payment. You cannot undo this. But these are all things that come out to, I think, in a lot of these very small details.
Yeah, you said the submit the payment part, and it made me think of it might be in other mail apps, but in Gmail, you can undo send, because in the background, they're not sending right away because they're giving you a chance to be like, oh, I meant to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering why we don't see that kind of thing more with, because I definitely know I have paid like my credit card out of the wrong bank account before.
Yes.
And because I'm not looking, I hit the submit button, and before the confirmation message loads, I then start reading what's on the screen, and I'm like, no.
You're feeling the time. Yeah.
Now I have to move money around.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. And I don't want to put words in your mouth at all, so correct me if I've mistaken what you said, but you commented on senior designers, and the inference I took was like, well, I'll put it in my words, kids these days aren't thinking about these things. And I think, where my brain goes is part of it is because the systems within which they're working don't give them enough time, or there's too much pressure, or they don't have enough political capital or political will. And then on the other hand, I think, this isn't a one-to-one comparison, but I think drop downs are getting worse.
Yep.
Like they're getting less usable. And so I just think I don't know if it's full on enshittification, but it's the system doesn't want it. And so the people don't learn it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I won't say it's like a vicious cycle, but I feel like it's a negative cycle where it's feeding itself in such a way that less attention is being paid to a lot of these details.
Yeah. I think a lot of that.
So fix it, Erin. Fix it.
I think a lot of that, however, connects to the whole discussion around design systems and how things work in large organizations or not work. Mm-hmm. And this can be something as simple as, let's say, for example, loaders, right? Mm-hmm. If you work in an organization that does not have a design system, you end up risking that you start having a divergence even smaller of everything. Your loaders are looking different. If you have a design system, you may have one or two, but then you're also locked in, especially if the design system team or processes or so on are very static, right? So you end up with a solution like, well, I can try to push this change back to the design system that is going to take so long, or just give up and use whatever component is there, right? And so you may end up with a solution that is done not because it's the best solution. Maybe the designer even knows it's not the best solution, but what are the alternatives? And so they end up there. And sometimes it's structural, right? If I take, for example, let's say that a design system is missing skeleton loaders. Mm-hmm. That's in itself is not a huge amount of time to build one, right? But if you start multiplying that and you start reminding every design organization that they should be using that, it's not in the design system, so it needs to be custom put in every single time for engineering, and you need to start reminding engineering to build one every single time. It's not going to happen, right? And so again, on the other side, the flip of that same coin is that if you get a designer that started their career in a company that has a good design system, that was already done automatically, where engineering was, of course, I'm adding a skeleton loader. I will add everywhere it's needed. You don't even have to tell me, right? And then they change company and they don't even think they now add to add a skeleton loader, or maybe they don't even realize for years. And now this is a stupid example, right? But I think it sets the frame of how these dynamics can influence even the career and perception of and skills of an individual designers in making a change and transforming something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Several years ago, I worked at a place, and the designers were getting a little. There wasn't a design system, and that's fine. But the software was really old, and we were trying to make a point, and maybe this wasn't a good use of paper and ink, but we printed out every single screen in the software and filled an entire large conference room, every wall. We found 18 different color pickers.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. And this was to start the conversation of why are we doing so much rework all the time? Right. But I think that to your point, that wouldn't have happened if some of us hadn't lived or worked in a world where, like, we didn't call them design systems at the time, but we had a library of UI artifacts, is I think what we called it, and because we had those things to rely on, going to a place where they didn't exist was like, but why?
Yes.
Do you like? I mean, and the truth is, I think some of the engineers really liked just building their own custom color picker because it was something to do on those long release cycles. But yeah, I don't know. I have such a, like, I understand. No, I don't think I want to say that. I was going to start ragging a little bit on design systems in general. Because I think we hit a point where, again, I guess this kind of goes back to the point you were making. It's like we hit a point where you've got people who are relying upon just pulling Lego pieces out and they're not getting the opportunity to think through building those things in the first place. And then that, from a design education perspective, that makes me then think, like, what can we do to build that knowledge? Like, I'm just making stuff up, but like, do we have workshops where we rebuild the loader from scratch from a design perspective? And so it's like, and this is why we made these choices. Could we have made better choices? Maybe. And maybe we can roll those things into this. But, like, I don't know how much I know a lot of people are want for time, but how much of like people, design leadership people in these organizations are thinking about this stuff, because sorry, I'm going off here, where it's like, I think there's a lot of design leadership who are looking at their teams and saying, we have to produce,
Mm-hmm.
rather than, I'm going to help you with your career, that will then have knock on benefits of helping you, pull the design lever on the assembly line better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just soapboxing there. I apologize.
No, that makes sense still.
Yeah. All right. So what are we going to do about it? Fixing design education. Go.
I don't think right now there is much to fix, in the sense that it's nothing new, right? So the
Yeah.
problems have been there for a while. I think right now it's more of a matter of new tooling. And honestly, I think that in many ways, for example, design system failed. And not in the way that we were just saying. I mean, that's of course an aspect of it, right? But in the sense that they didn't push it far enough. It's still stayed in a lot of organization, or even just in the general discourse, like this broad takes, but it's never been systematized. And the tokens discussion, for example, was one of these that I think made good point, but again, it stopped at tokens. And I think that becomes an issue, in the sense that if we could rely on design system as a universal, right? And when I say this,
Mm-hmm.
is something along the lines of universal, not of course in the sense of 100%, in the sense of broad enough that you can expect that to be everywhere. Like the tools we are using these days, right? So most designers, for better or worse, know how to use Figma, product designers, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we can assume that. We can have a separate discussion how good or bad it is, but because we can assume that, then we can have designers that ignore the foundation and build only from Figma up, in the sense, right? And we
Yeah.
cannot have that for the design system, because we never systematize that in such a way as an industry, right? And so as some teams, you are at loss if you're not able to do these things. In other teams, you're like, nobody cares. You're never touching it. So go, right? And I mentioned this as important because if we start talking about design education, it's like, well, if it was systemic, then you kind of make a career choice in knowing the below the line and above the line. But because it's not right now, you don't know where you're going to end up. And
Mm-hmm.
so it
Yeah.
starts becoming important to know both sides of it, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
me, that is a distinction. But ultimately, the moment you start working, it is up to the people around you. It is up to your manager. It is up to the organization to help you grow. Otherwise, it's just your own initiative to keep data and trying things out. And both are
Mm-hmm.
valid, but not both require the same time.
Yeah. Boo. Like, I don't know. Part of me is like, oh, well, it's great that we'll in this scenario, we'll start someone at the very start of their design
Mm-hmm.
career. It's great that somebody can come into an organization that we'll say has a moderately robust design system. It covers a lot of stuff, that someone can come in and start being, I hate saying this word, really, like productive. I'd rather have impactful, but whatever. Um, you start doing things. There we go. And contributing to work, and helping people move forward, and you can drag and drop an interface in 20 minutes, and Bob may be your uncle. But I I guess it's like, and I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that there's this unrealized opportunity cost, both for the individual and for the organization, for not making them do it from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And not in a hazing way. you know, I had to drag this interface uphill both ways, and you will too. But to really understand the thinking, the thought process, the mechanics, the choices you have to make based off of constraints, that how that thing got that way. Um, I would just love to see more for everybody, but especially for people who are just starting their career, more opportunities to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I will challenge you on that in the sense that
Yes,
is like,
excellent. Go.
is that design? Like, what is like? I know we don't need to answer this now. I know it's a sort of
Perfect.
a rhetorical question, but it's like that goes back to the point of what is design, right? In the sense
Yeah.
that I give you an example from my deep past now. At some point, I used to lead a team that was a hybrid team on purpose of designers, UX designers, and engineers, like developers.
Mm-hmm.
And a different person was leading a team of art directors, purely, right? Now, the magical thing, or if you want the odd thing, depending on the perspective, is that my team was great because they never produced a visual. They always the most visual thing they produced was a wireframe. And they work with engineering sometimes to build prototypes and so on. And then, in a sense, engineering was the conduit that connected to the art directors. The art directors were the ones that took the wireframes and maybe the prototypes and add their skill, right? Branding, visuals, right? And of course, this can happen
Right.
more in an agency side. It was an agency, it was not product. But the beauty of the setup was that we could have a team of specialists on the visual and branding style, right? So they could create things and they have the time to create things that were really great and really went to, in a sense, beyond what you would expect in terms of visual impact, right? At the same
Mm-hmm.
time, we had designers that were specifically UX designers or interaction designers that they weren't, maybe they, I don't care, like they could have or they could have not been good at the visual side of things. Didn't matter because what they cared about was understanding the user, connecting, creating the right flows, the right interactions, and so on, right? None of that was visual. And and it was a beautiful setup, honestly. It worked really well. Never seen replicated
Mm-hmm.
elsewhere. It's probably super challenging to replicate. But at the same time, to me, it highlighted and gave me the proof that these were both designers, right? So one more focused on the
Mm-hmm.
visual, one more
Yep.
focused on flows and interactions. So which one are we talking about when we say, the skill of going deep or building and creating, these basic components and then to reuse in design systems? Could be either, but at the same time, it's not neither by neither, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I think that to me stretches a little bit the definitions of what we're calling like career paths as well, right?
Yeah. No. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. There's an aspect of what you just described with that interaction design and art direction split that was how my career started, and it was probably in my fifth or sixth year, I think, when uh, before Adobe bought it, when
Hmm.
Dreamweaver 2 came out, maybe, where the people with the title designer, who up until that point were, I don't know, I would describe our role as kind of a hybrid between business analyst and interaction designer. So like we'd be doing some research, we'd be doing to get an understanding of requirements and stuff like that, and we'd be doing wireframes with, you know, I mean, we'd use like the brand
Mhm.
colors for things, but really it was just to make them not so boring. Um, but they were just, they were wireframes, and that's pretty much where it stopped. And then someone else would come in later and make it look better, And, to your point, that worked really well. The problem, Erin, is that was a time when the work we did was called waterfall. And these days, waterfall verboten. So, yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is let's blame agile and society at large.
Oh yeah, but that's easy.
Yeah, yeah. I, for the record, I'm lazy, which is why I just blame society. But yeah, it's no, you're right to make that distinction, and I think not to. I don't mean, well, at least consciously, I don't think that I mean this as from being defensive, because I don't really want to be that way. But I think it's because, for the past, maybe 15 years or so, designers have been thrown into this pile of work to do, and it's just do all the stuff, right? Which is funny because, I just wrote this blog post about generalists, and, I consider myself a generalist, but I suck at visual design. So maybe I'm not a generalist, right? If my career had become, we'll just say a design system specialist, because we're talking about design systems, I would be very unhappy with my personality type and the things I'm interested in, because that kind of specialization, it just feels, I just get bored with it, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean that to me is it's a fair point. Like everyone, like on one side, we're for better or for worse, going back to more like the market has been what it's been for the last few years. So we're going to be a compression and productivity and all, or you need to be able to execute the interface to the interface point instead of being able to say this person is great to do just flows and wireframes. They do that, and this person, and they want to everything do together, which to me is also not generalist. It's just squeezing into the productive side. It looks like a generalist in some ways, but it's not, right? So there is a tension there, right? But at the same time, these aspects, these facets are all design. And at the same time, even when you're saying, oh, I mean, maybe visual design is not, the thing that is my thing, you still have that sensibility, right? And you can inform that. And that's, and to me, that's important, because on one side of the discourse we have of course that designers are people that the core is being empathetic, focusing on the user and creating the best flows. Everything else is secondary. And on the other side, objectively, you have an entire design industry that is just aesthetics, right? And neither is in a sense in the pure sense true, right? There is definitely a spectrum, but I don't believe that there is a designer that doesn't have an element of both sides to some extent. And so, and there is a designer that loves doing design systems, and may not be you, but it's just great that these people exist, and each one of us can play to our strengths hopefully in the right organization.
Yes, always ideally that. No, I've had some people on my team before who are just really love thinking about how tools work together and the constraints of them, and figuring out those weird intersections and solving for I mean, it's not the best phrase, but edge cases specifically from a technology perspective. And that is awesome. I've always been like, I've said this before, but I walked into an interview one time and the hiring manager said, hadn't even sat down yet, said, "So tell me about your favorite design tool." And I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a tools conversation." And so I said, "Pen and paper."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "No, I mean design tool."
What?
Pen and paper, buddy. So yeah, that interview didn't go great. But yeah, because to me, and again, I'm glad there's space for this too. Is that I'm much more interested in the what and the why.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you as a business trying to do this, and what are you trying to accomplish? Flip those, whatever. And then the how largely will present itself.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you need an app because apps are cool. That was sarcasm, and for the one listening,
Let's be clear.
Yeah, yeah. Let's be clear. I had that years ago. I had a company that I was working with as a freelancer. They said, "Hey, we want to make an app for the iPhone so that people with migraines can track their migraines."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "You want people with migraines looking at their phone?"
Yeah.
Like I understand tracking, but like this is your because we need an app. We need an app.
Mm-hmm.
But this was what was this 2010, and
Yeah.
it's 3 years into the iPhone, so
Exactly.
everybody's got to have an app. Got to have those push notifications so that we can market to people, which is really the goal always. Anyway. I can be a little cynical sometimes.
No,
I apologize.
I mean, don't get me there. But I totally get that.
Yeah.
It's not like I remember one of the very early moments in my career going to a discussion with a really big company, and one of the funny things was that year, a couple of months before, the CEO went like, "We need to build widgets." So anyone inside the company who was building widgets would have got funding. So they came to us as an agency and it was like, "We're going to build widgets." I was like, "The fuck are you talking about? This is not this is not what you need. This is not the thing." And I remember then a discussion. We just went through this thing and whatever, it doesn't matter. And I remember a conversation with my then boss, was a great person, very extremely pragmatic on these things. I was like, this thing we're building, like next year is gonna be thrown away and obsolete. Why they're even trying to do this? And he looks at me and is like, "Yeah, it's gonna last a year. Like that's what they're paying for. That's the thing. That's the goal. Next year is gonna be a different priority. They will trash it." I was like, so they're releasing an app to the entire customer base with the idea that next year is already going to be unmaintained. And it was like, "Yep." I was like, "Okay, I guess."
What are we doing here, people?
Yeah, right? And in my head, I was like, "Yeah, we're building a thing that's going to last years and it's going to be great and it's going to serve users." And it's like, nope. So.
And now, instead of widgets, we have AI.
Yeah, exactly. It's always something.
It's always something. Yeah. All right. Let's switch gears.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for 7 plus or minus 2 questions.
Sure.
Okay. So I will say there's no wrong answer to any of these questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Wherever your mind takes you, that's fine. Personal, professional, doesn't matter. And you don't have to answer the question. Okay? First question. What's something that you did recently that went really well?
That's an interesting one. I would say that by by chance, I started supporting an internal API governance initiative, and because I've done in the past and so on, and yeah, I ended up doing a lot more than I expected supporting. So now it's very successful. It's progressing really well. And I was like, and the main objection would be, but you're a designer? I was like, yeah, I know. I have a past in development.
Yeah.
So that's, API is our foundation. You can have designers helping with the API. But yeah, it's been unexpectedly big thing and successful.
Excellent. All right. Next question. Why can't we have nice things?
Because, well, the quick answer is we are human. So by definition. The second one is that because of that, we cannot agree what a nice thing is. And the third thing is that even if we have, again, because we're human, there is a decreased niceness perception of anything you got that was nice in the origin, so it stops being the moment you acquire it. And so we will go for the next one. So, and these factors interplay and create really horrible things, as well as just not liking the thing you just bought and you were very happy to with last month.
Well, I'm going to say straight up that that's the best answer to the question so far. So, which is an objective observation and not subjective in any way. All right, next question. What's the biggest earthquake you've ever been in?
Like physical?
Hey, no limits here.
It's I mean, metaphorically, I survived so many acquisitions. So I think that's the metaphorical one. Yeah.
Okay.
Biggest was an acquisition in Sierra ago that the entire UK company was acquired, and it seemed to go well for a couple of years, and then unraveled. But yeah, it was still a fun ride.
That's good. All right, next question. What's the best road trip you've ever taken?
Oof. So first of all, road trip is not much of a thing, I think, for Europeans, but I would say that actually, so I need to add a little context. With a dear friend of mine, for a few years, we used to go to South by Southwest and then take a flight to Phoenix after South by Southwest, and then just take a car and drive to roughly San Francisco, and every time changing path. And I still have really great memories because, yeah, again, from a European perspective, that's the classic road trip, but at the same time, it was really fun. It was this mix of professional, personal things happening and seeing a lot of things, and having weird encounters from time to time. So yeah.
One of the reasons I love asking these questions is getting people's different perspectives. And I think this question doesn't have to be interpreted this way, but is more commonly interpreted as, what trip by car have you taken?
That was it.
So what would be the European version of that if it wasn't a car? And where my mind goes is like, it's not a trip to say I live here and I go here and I am here and then I go back here, and it's about destinations, not the journey. But like what you described of leaving South by and going to Phoenix and driving different routes, that's a journey trip.
Well,
so or that's how I interpret it, as, it's not, you may have the same destinations, but it's about the experience of getting there. What would be a non-car centric, maybe US centric way of saying that.
I just think that this road trip is the word that trips over in this definition. I would keep it more open journey in that sense.
Journey. Yeah. What's the best journey? Okay. Noted. Good notes. Good notes.
Well, you even getting feedback here. Great.
Yeah. I mean, if we're not trying to improve these things.
But yeah, I think for Europeans, the one that would be most comparable would be basically the same thing, but done by train. It's
by train.
relatively common for people to just have long rail. There is an interrail that is a thing as well. So.
Okay. All right. Last question. Imagine it's a year from now. What do you hope to not be carrying anymore?
Am I gonna state the obvious?
No wrong answer.
That fascism is rising everywhere. So I hope that's not gonna be a concern anymore.
Right on. Okay. Let's stop talking.